So I think it's time for us just to admit that 2020 is perhaps one of the craziest and most bizarre years of our lives. And we may not have imagined that when we started the new year, but it has been a crazy, crazy year. Certainly when we all began to learn about the coronavirus in early and mid-March, and now that we can acknowledge that hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives to this pandemic, and we've all been forced inside to be isolated and to be afraid and to be scared of what this is going to do to all of us and how it's going to change the world. And then in recent days here in America, we've been dealing with the ugly issue of racism again, and the streets have been filled with protesters, and really America's been divided once again over the issue of race and color and how we treat one another. And think about the economy. It was just totally doing great, and then it was shut down. And in recent days, people were really surprised last week that we had the number of job increases that we had, even though some 33 million people have lost their job. Things are so crazy that a friend of mine recently sent me a video with a city that was experiencing some kind of a lightning storm. It looked like right out of a horror movie or some kind of a science fiction scene where literally just one lightning beam after another was hitting the city over and over and over. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I've never seen such a thing. And his caption in the video was, why not? It is 2020 after all. So it seems to me that one of the great things that has been happening, some of the signs of hope, have been the way in which we, as fellow Americans, have risen up to care for one another, to be there for one another. There's a great verse in a couple of verses in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 1. Paul writes that we have been comforted by God, who is the God of all comfort and all mercy, and He comforts us during our afflictions or during our difficult times. God does that for us. And then Paul says, and He does this for you so that you can also comfort others who are going through hard times with the comfort that you've received from God. So it's kind of like that old idea of pushing something forward or paying something forward, that what God does for us allows us to do for others with that same amazing comfort and mercy. So as we see other people struggling, as we see people going through hard times, maybe they can't get out, or they've been isolated, or they can't go to the supermarket. We've seen many, many people do amazing things for one another and help each other out and go to the market for them, go to the pharmacy for them. It's been a beautiful thing if we've witnessed that. Some Uber drivers have been taking people to the hospital back and forth, and we've acknowledged our nurses and our doctors and our healthcare providers as real heroes, as frontline heroes in this society. And we've admired the efforts to cry out for justice in the life of the murdered man, George Floyd, that we all saw for those horrific 9 minutes on video that have just divided us and broken our spirit. But we can reach out to one another, and we can be comforting one another by listening to one another, by praying for one another, by coming alongside and saying, hey, I know you're going through a hard time. This pandemic, maybe you've lost your job. The issue of racism has hit home. All of these things are pressing in on us and making life hard and making it painful and make it discomforting. And we can come alongside of one another as true bridge builders, as peacemakers, and say, hey, I know you're going through a hard time. How have the riots and the protesters on the streets affected you? Hey, are you doing okay financially? Hey, do you know anybody that's gone through the coronavirus, and how are they doing? And even as we can't meet together in a lot of different ways, we can't meet as churches, or we're starting to, but it's in very small situations. We just need to be there for one another and bring that same comfort that God gives to us in our pain to one another. And that's a beautiful thing. So 2020 has been a memorable year. And years from now, we will remember this year. But we have a choice to make. We can either remember it as a year of despair and crisis and death and destruction, or we can remember it as a year of opportunity. An opportunity to step out of our old selfish ways, of our old style of just running through life, doing whatever we have to do, dealing with our agenda and not caring about anybody else. But maybe we become a different kind of people. Maybe we become a different kind of church community. Maybe we become different followers of Jesus. where we start taking time for one another. And this year is looked back on as a year where people started to care for one another, love one another, serve one another. So I have a suggestion, something very tangible for this week. Why don't you and I do something for somebody without them knowing that is designed to bless them, to comfort them, to encourage them, to inspire them, to lift them up. And if everyone listening to this video did something for somebody this week, just think of the multiplied goodness, the multiplied encouragement that could take place just this week from this video as you and I respond. And do it anonymously, not for credit, not to be thanked or praised, but just to be an encouragement, a comforter, someone who blesses somebody else. And I know that when you bless somebody, God always blesses us back. It's a great idea. I hope you take advantage of it. And let's see how it changes the way we live our lives and the way this year moves forward as we continue throughout the year.